First up, I would like to invite Jesse from Geeklab, who's going to be talking about reinventing successful game launches.
All right. Hello, everyone. Let's kick it off with a...
Leverage the power of loyalty.
Not that one. This one. A mandatory introduction slide. So I'm Jesse Lempiäinen. I used to work at Rovio as a product marketing manager, primarily launching games, new games, and trying to figure out what would be our new strategies for a few new studios. After which I co-founded Geeklab, at which we actually then again help different game companies to launch games, which is why today we're going to talk about reinventing successful game launches. And to get to that, well, I'm going to quickly share why we need to change, so to get a bit of context around the topic. Then, what are the actual three main conflicts that I see in this current way that we are launching games? How can we fix it? And then, hopefully, if we have time, I'm trying to make this all into 15 minutes or so. So also practical examples on how you can actually do it today or tomorrow. Cool, why do we need to change? So, we all know making games is super fun, and not only fun, but it's a very, very lucrative business. Very solid business, but unfortunately there's a ton of mobile games out there, 700,000 more or less, so which is why majority of the new games actually the launches fail. So if you look at top 10, top grossing in the United States, only one game was made in 2023, more or so, Monopoly Go. And if we take a look at all these successful launches post-ATT, they tend to have like two things in common. One, they're either from a billion-dollar company, or two, they have very strong IPs, or actually the third one would be that they have both of these. So if you don't have a billion-dollar company, or you don't have access to a very strong IP, what can you actually do? We kind of need to rethink how to launch games then. And to get back to year 2018, while I was still working at Rovio, we were working around this game called Angry Birds Dream Blast, and that's when we actually released it. And it made it top grossing to USA 100, which is why we can call it a successful game launch as well. But what I hope majority of you guys know that when it comes to game development, that wasn't our immediate success. We had a budget for new games that we were doing. We tried out different things, and they failed, and they failed, and they failed, until we had no money left. And then we did Dream Blast, and then money came pouring in. Obviously, that's not truth. Rovio is a big company, so this is just to make it a bit more dramatic for you guys. But yeah, in short, again, as you saw, we failed multiple times before actually Dream Blast came out. But then, as we started Geeklab, we were in a bit of a different situation. We had no money, nor had we any features, so we had to figure out what to actually do now. So what we did, we actually built directly with all the developers that we work with. We tried out different things, we built them and put them directly live, and a lot of these things, they failed as well, but we were building them together with the developers directly for the product, which kind of then got me into thinking, as we were building this practice, got me into thinking like, what are the things that actually are currently a bit off in the way we are launching games. So, what are the three main conflicts? The first one is, we say that we do it for the players, but we're actually developing the games for ourselves. What I mean by this is that this is sort of the traditional way of building games that I hope that most of you would recognize. We have this typical flight path, or whatever you call it, with different stages, where the initial idea is the first one on the left, and the milestone to get forward is is this game fun, and does it have great market potential? You go to your studio leads, or if you are the studio lead, you make the decision that, okay, this ticks all the boxes that we've set, and we can move to production, and you give it a production budget. Then you start to develop the game, after which at the end of the production then you do some early validation with the marketing assets and then technical tests to see if it works, and if it's good you move to soft launch, and at soft launch it's practically to build up a profitable user acquisition machine so that the lifetime value is higher than the cost per install, and if that's good, so then you kind of press the button and you call it a global launch, and then the infinite continuous live optimization kicks off. But when we look at this frame, the issue here is that actually this entire beginning is all internal. This is a very internal process. The initial idea, again, like that's typically might have some surveys with the audience or whatever, but like it's very, very internal, whereas just in here you actually start to develop it with the users themselves. And on top of this, obviously the cost accelerates over time, which means that if you only get to know like kind of what are the things that are not working and what are working during the soft launch, so it's going to cost you a lot. Whereas if you find those things earlier, you can actually try twice. So fail late, fail expensively, fail early, you can try twice. As an example, with Rovio, we tried this puzzle RPG game called Phoenix Rangers, and this was the current art style at that time. But we thought that okay, maybe because the characters were such a crucial part of the game, maybe there could be other styles that could improve the marketability, but thus also the engagement of the game itself. So we tried out like different concepts. Typically I do a voting thing here, but I'm out of time, so I'm just going to jump right into the results. So out of these art styles, we found out that this particular one was actually performing way better than the original one. So in terms of how much better, for every 100,000 installs that the original art style got, this new art style we got 38,000 installs more. The problem was, we ran this experiment at this time. It was too late for us to then redo all the art on the actual game itself, and yeah, we already like ran through all the budget that we had for this particular game. Another issue is that we want to collaborate, but we have two separate units without connection. And what I mean with this is that specifically as you get into bigger teams, so the game team is obviously there, the core game team, development team is there from the very, very beginning. But the central unit kind of comes in with these different moments of time throughout like the process, but is not there continuously. And it brings some issues as sort of the game team has this very internal vision that's guided by the external data points that are there. And the central unit is typically then the one that then makes sure that the internal vision is communicated with the external audience, there's an audience match, and then delivers these external data points. But as you can see, it's scattered, and only after or during soft launch it typically gets so that these two teams collaborate continuously as one singular team. And lastly, the smallest decisions have the biggest impact. Another example, we were working with this game studio called Funcraft, and they wanted to build a word crosswords puzzle game, and it was a new company, so small team, a lot of big question marks. So they wanted to find out how to make it work. So we did some market research, and we found out that actually there were no crossword puzzle games that had like a very, very strong meta in it. So we thought, okay, this is a good thing to test and good thing to build as well. So we did more tests, and we found out that in United States, which was the target market, people prefer dogs way more than cats. So we thought about like we built up this nice looking dog character that would be the guiding voice for this particular game. So we had these two different versions of this game. We had other things that we tested along as well, but between these two, with our internal data points our internal decision making and external data points that we use to gather up the data and figure out that okay, this dog would work better. In paper, we would have gone with that decision on the spot. But then we actually if we take a look at this, so this decision has quite a big impact. So if you would go with this dog one, so then the focus on that game would be more with sound effects and all these other things that meta would actually require you to have. It would mean that then the small studio would now have to hire a 2D visual artist for this game and maybe a narrative designer to make the character really flourish. And then about how much this decision would cost, this would actually be something we'd find out during soft launch more or less. Whereas with this one, the focus would be just on the crosswords themselves and maybe adding some social features in it, which would mean that then the team composition would be like different. You would hire an additional level designer, maybe social features developer and so on. And again, you would find out like what's the impact during soft launch. But instead of waiting till soft launch or just going with our decision here, we actually run this test before the game was even out. So we built all the assets, we built all the advertisements and run a test to see what's the impact. And we found out that this one worked twice as good as the dog one. And that's actually now the game that's out there, and we can call it a successful game launch as well because they're spending quite a bit of money on marketing and making money as well these days with that game. So to sum it up, we say we do it for the developers, but we're really developing it for ourselves. We want to collaborate internally, but have two separate units without connection, and the smallest decisions that we make have the biggest impacts. So how do we fix it? Honestly, there's no secret worth hiding from your audience. 700,000 mobile games, almost all ideas have to some extent already been out there as well. So what we truly can say, just show it immediately, test and learn. So what you want to do is always to size the market, actually test it with the audience immediately. So you don't have to wait until you go to the end of soft launch. You can do this. This can be your like original milestone in the initial idea. Test it with the real audience. Ask questions, run surveys, use tools like to actually test with the players immediately to find out what works and what doesn't. And and when you do that, you actually start to build a community of very engaged players already. And on top of that, instead of thinking it as a flight path with sort of accelerating touch points with the audience, you should think of it as a loop. So figure out what you want to test, you test it and you learn and you validate. We had an idea that, okay, puzzle plus dogs would equal money. Found out that it's not actually true, so we went the other way around. So you continuously do this and think of it as a loop rather than like a linear flight path. And to give you some examples on how this could actually be applied in practice, so it makes more sense. I've been in love with Baldur's Gate since it came out. Lost my sleep to it. So we could now think that we would make a new game where we would take some of the very well-made mobile mechanics of Diablo Immortal, but take like sort of the rich story environments from Baldur's Gate where all the decisions matter and huge trees and build it in Unreal Engine 5. But now, instead of us building it traditionally, with like shooting in the dark, so to say, with this flight path, we would actually do it with this loop mentality instead. And what that means, it's not free, it requires effort, but it's 100% worth it. So in the beginning, what we would do, it would be as simple as us building up an ad of this game that we have in mind. In this case, as you can see, it looks like this sort of, well, gets the point across to extent that it should. This is the only AI thing that I will say now, because I bet a lot of people will do that regardless. But this is a perfect example where you can use AI as well. During these early tests, all these assets that I'm going to show you are 100% built by AI. So yeah, you can. It helps you cut the cost a bit during this test phase as well. But yeah, you show the advertisement on Facebook or Instagram, or both, and then you drive users to a survey where you ask more about, you communicate that this game isn't out yet, you ask more about like what would be the things that you would want to see developed here and so on. And after they complete the survey, you could direct them into Discord already to build up your engaged community. As simple as this. What you would get with this is actually already insights of the audience. You could see if there's any market traction for your idea. It wouldn't cost you too much either. $1,250 would be more than enough for you to get the early insights here needed. And in terms of actual content, you would need copy, a few visuals and so on, but quite standard to be fair. All right, then we figured out like that we actually have market traction. So the next step, we could extend this a bit, would be that we would run the test again on Meta and Instagram, direct the users to tools like ours where you can create like a lookalike store page. So it feels and acts just like the actual App Store page, but it's actually a web page that you can build as you want to. After which you direct the users to a survey that would in this case be hosted with us as well, and again then go to Discord. But now we would want to figure out what would be the best art style. So you would build up one with realistic art style, one with pixel style, one with cartoony art style, one with this sort of 2.5D style, and then to spice things up, you would have one with just text-based content as well. Again, you would run this test. $5,000 would be more or less something that you would want to invest in a test like this to have enough users to validate the insights. And with this, you would know which art style would actually have the best impact. We could continue. Instead of art style, we could actually try out with the different themes. So you could have fantasy, you could have sci-fi, you could have modern, and then again, this exact same thing. You would have the ad, then go to the App Store or the lookalike App Store page, survey, and then Discord. Same thing. You would still invest more or less $5,000 to have enough users to validate these insights. But with this, like actually instead of traditionally what could have happened is that we would have had our idea and we would have just gone with it and built something that based on our external data points that we've gathered through different platforms and so on, we could have made a very well-educated decision and build up a game like this, which would end up it being like that. Whereas with this loop mentality, as we've tested and validated these insights along the way, we would have first find out that, okay, this art style is the best, okay, this theme is the best, which would then end up us building completely different game, but something that's actually in line with what the audience would want and expect. And lastly, I like to say as well that you don't necessarily always have to pick the one that's from market insights point of view, the most effective one. But what it means when you run these tests is that if your team is very passionate about they absolutely hate sci-fi and don't want to build a sci-fi game, but you would see that, okay, this sci-fi team would cut the costs by 20%. So when you actually run these tests, so then you will know that the decision that you're making has an impact of you having to spend 20% more on marketing, meaning then that you have to take that into account when you design the monetization and these other things to your game. So that then you can add up to the bigger cost on UA. Yeah, that was it. Thank you. We have 2 minutes left for Q&A. Try to be as fast as possible.
First of all, Jesse, thank you so much for the amazing presentation. My name is Qais. I work at Google. And just to make sure, Jesse, what are the main languages that are available in the Geeklab platform?
Everything, Geeklab as well. And that's, again, a good point. Like when you design like these tests and you run these tests, so having your target audience in mind is extremely crucial, and then going all in. So if you want to do it in States, English is good, but really going all in with translations and the local languages is extremely important.
Cool. I think there was one question over there.
Hello. Okay. Thank you so much, Jesse, for this presentation. I head into this meeting like 10 minutes when you were already talking, so maybe I missed it. When deciding developing a game, what do you have in mind first? The game you want to build, or the target audience you want to make it for? What comes first?
That's a good question. And we work with a lot of different game developers, so I would say that also varies a lot between the developers. So some actually go for the market first and then try to figure out what to build for that market. But then sometimes you can also, and that's exactly what this methodology allows you to do, is to also come up with your idea and see if there is an audience and what that audience actually looks like. What are the main motivations? What are the demographics don't matter that much, but like the motivation and these things behind the audience. So both work.